This is Agronomy Moment. I'm Wendell Cohen. Welcome everybody to another podcast here on Agronomy Moment. Today we're going to talk about wheat. That's coming up here in February, and joining me today is Celena Kipping here, Beck's agronomist for Southwest Missouri. How are you today?
Good. How are things going, Wendell?
It's been good. Been pretty busy, and then we slowed down just a little bit after the winter rush, and now we're building back up again. Looking forward to spring of 23. And
probably will be here before you know it.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
And with wheat as our focus here today, you were telling me just a bit what you've seen so far in wheat. It looks like a pretty good potential overall, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think so far this winter has been pretty friendly for us as far as getting a little bit of moisture, but not an excess amounts of moisture, but good enough to keep that wheat crop going. And
yes,
and hopefully here in a couple of weeks, once it warms up, we kind of see a little bit more green out there. But so far, I've been pretty pleased to see the wheat fields and what they look like so far.
Well, so let's dive in here to our wheat PFR proven management. We're going to start out a little bit of the background of the slides is why. So we'll talk about PFR, the proven part of it. We're going to talk about what and finish up with how. I'm going to give my usual disclaimer real quick is that we compile this information. It's not a specific recommendation for your field. These are for informational purposes, and you should reach out to your agronomist or us at any time to get specifics.
Absolutely.
But the goal of this is to propel you forward here as we go into green up. First thing I want to touch on is row width and population a little bit. I think this is a debatable subject as we talk about planters versus drills, but what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I think most of this just comes down to what you got in your shed and what works best for your operation. And if you got that planter, this PFR information is showing you that your planter is still gonna give you some really good return on investment. If you got a drill, still showing really good return there also. So it's just kind of what's your end goal, and I think that this PFR does a really good job of showing us both and telling both stories.
I think we go back down to what's the most important, and that is what relates to yield, right? What drives that, and that is making sure you have plenty of seeds per head, heads per square foot, and tillers per plant.
Absolutely.
Just keep walking your fields with that in mind.
And one thing too, just to kind of briefly hit on, if you're kind of unsure of the weather patterns or something, bumping that population, to get more heads out there and more tillers out there, because sometimes it's really hard to predict the weather. I get it, but if we're really unsure, if we're gonna have some drier conditions or stuff, that try to put more seeds out there.
Yes. Yep, agreed. Because we see here with the 3-year multi-location row width population net return, slight difference there, but in the grand scheme of things, we don't even know what yield goals were in this test necessarily. Right. And so in the grand scheme of things, I think there's a lot of other things we need to be focused on depending on what that field's needs are, what it has the ability to produce.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about nitrogen just a little bit. It is, again, a proven practice to split apply nitrogen. I want to talk about that just a little bit. One thing you might notice up there in the slide is back in 2018 when the 108, 192 units of UAN were put on, nitrogen was 45 cents a unit. However, we have to remember is wheat was $4.83. And 2023, the other day, I just put $7.50. We've seen a lot of $8 and $9 wheat and higher here in the last while, but nitrogen's at 75 cents a unit. My point here is to have you weigh in on this is split applying is so important because of.
Yep. So the split application here, I think, just tells the whole story. No matter what, to help with weather conditions, if it's been really wet and we need more nitrogen, but as far as just split applying, getting really close to the crop use is going to be really important. And obviously, again, in our PFR data there on the left, you can really see no matter which form you're putting on,
Yep.
just if it comes to logistics or something like that, and putting on urea is the best for your operation, just get it on there.
Yes.
So I think that's the most important thing is just if it comes down to it, make sure we're getting that split application done and getting nitrogen out there for that crop.
Yep. Agreed. And no time like today is that more important. This is from 6 years past up till 2016 is what we're seeing.
Yep.
But no time is there like today in 2023 where those dollars and cents I think could even be higher because you're saving yourself a lot more cost from dumping it all up front. And another thing I want to notice is the break even at 100 units at 45 cents with 2018 pricing, 9.32 bushel today at 75 cents. The break even is 10.0 bushel. This is my own calculations. So not a lot has changed. If wheat is $7.50 at 75 cents a unit from 2018, we're still at similar break even points. So just keeping that in mind, that somewhere's around that 100 units of nitrogen is your economic optimum nitrogen return.
Absolutely.
Fungicides, help me out a little bit on this part here.
Yeah, so in our PFR data, the Miravis Ace, we can see that we've got a really good return on investment there, and that's going to be your full head. But I think kind of the story here, Wendell, I like to see is that even at 10.3, we're seeing a really good return. So just kind of like the nitrogen, kind of we're getting that story of just get that fungicide out there,
the logistics,
and get that on.
If a rain's forecast and you think it might hit it that little bit later, maybe bumping it just a little bit earlier, you're still going to see a good return.
Yep.
Fungicide in wheat is a PFR proven practice, practice. And so we're seeing even in years where disease pressure is really low, that there's still gain, right?
Yep, absolutely. Wheat's going to still, respond to that application very well and give you some really good protection from a really big yield driver, or not yield driver, but hurt us as far as yield with that head scab.
Sure. So now we're going to go to the blue slides, and the blue slides is we're going to just kind of do an overall bullet point plan for wheat going forward in 23. And so we're going to assume now that we've walked our fields in February or right now, and we've got fertility right, our aphids are controlled, our pH is close, planting date was on time, we planted with enough seeds per foot of row, and our nitrogen, we probably put down a few units there for fall. And assuming that, this is a plan to consider going forward. Talk about a little bit here about early spring, late winter.
Yeah, so here we're kind of going to consider that we've got 25 plants out there per square foot, which is a really, really good spot to be. And we're going to be looking at that green up time about Feeks 3, and getting another nitrogen application out there around that time, and to where we can set ourselves up for a good split application at about Feeks 5.
Yes. Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Okay.
I agree.
Yep. And then we really want to be sure that we have that taken care of by Feeks 6 as we start to get really limited to what we can do after that point.
Yep. I agree. And if one sees you have a little bit of a thinner stand, maybe you're holding shy of that 25, one could bump your nitrogen, like front load it just a little bit more, like we're showing.
Yeah.
To help build a little more early growth to help tiller out a little more.
Yes, absolutely.
Talk a little bit here about, now we're going to mid to late season, just a few bullet points here to hit as we get on into closer to our stage.
Yep.
And on through it, actually.
Just continuing to nail on those two topics that we kind of talked about before, the nitrogen and the fungicide, getting that additional nitrogen application on there. And the fungicide, Wendell and I kind of talked about, for these sort of scenarios, we're talking about a pretty high management situation here, to where everything is kind of working in our favor, which, that probably rarely happens, but nonetheless, just for giggles, we're gonna say that we've got some ideal situations, and kind of like I hit on the beginning of the presentation, is I think we've got some pretty good conditions to put ourselves into a
Yes.
situation where we probably are seeing ourselves in a little bit of a good management or a higher management standpoint. So maybe that's when we look at a split application of fungicide, even putting it at a Feeks 8 or 9 and really protecting those leaves and the flag leaf
Yes.
for the foliar diseases. Is the flag leaf is what's going to drive over 75% of the photosynthetic rate of the plant.
Yep.
So, or for grain fill. So I think that's just something that it's an idea that we could think about
Sure.
there.
Yep. To help bump the yields a little more. The last thing I want to touch on is harvest on time and even running a touch early,
Mm-hmm.
trying to push that. I think it's no secret that wheat is vulnerable to rain
Mm-hmm.
when it's ready to go. And I just share that story about the guys in Kentucky,
Yeah.
how the operations at trade combines every year. This was pre-COVID, but they would work out a deal with the dealer where they could have the old combine and the new combine at the same time for just wheat
Mm-hmm.
harvest, and they were able to double up their machinery for a couple weeks to get the wheat out on time because they believed that that was critical to those top end yields. And of course, that's not doable on every case.
Right.
Probably most cases,
Mm-hmm.
most farms, most operations. However, I still think there's that focus, that mentality of we need to get it out,
Yeah.
and they counted that more important than their corn and soybean crop.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I think you get into is not only wheat yield, but you mentioned earlier, Celena, about the soybeans.
Yep. Yep. So talking about a timely harvest for wheat, that's going to set up for a more successful bean crop.
Yes,
Coming to where the earlier we can get those beans in, the better those beans are going to be off.
yes,
And for that early growth and try to stack on nodes as quick as possible.
yep. Now we're going to dive into this multicolored slide here into we're kind of just going to roll over the different targets that we just went over on bullet points. So if you're watching this video in season, you can run to the bullet points and move on. But if you want to spend a little more time and know exactly um, where those timings are, we're just going to roll through those here in one slide so you
Mm-hmm.
have it all in one shot. Nitrogen, talk a little bit about the timing and just what we need there.
Yep, nitrogen. Going to hit on that bullet point. Feeks 3 and 5. Those are the really important growth stages to get that nitrogen out there, really close to crop use, and really going to see that uptake in nitrogen.
Yep. And if one misses the boat or too much rain, as late as Feek 7,
Mm-hmm.
you could see some benefit there as late as that. That would be kind of your line there where you begin to have dubious response after that.
Yeah, and say we've got some really, really ideal conditions, and we get a lot of growth out of that. Maybe that's a situation where we consider that plant growth regulator
Yep.
to help with the standability.
Yep. Absolutely. Growth regulators can be beneficial if you really have too much fertility out there and too much
Mm-hmm.
growth, and with chance of wind and rain and stuff knocking it down.
Yep.
Um, what about herbicide? What were we going to talk about on that?
Yeah, we want to have herbicides and weeds kind of under control by the Feek 6 stage. Really want to probably target that 3 to 4. And again, kind of moving into the second, or not the second, but the next bullet point about aphid control.
Okay.
Maybe a situation where if the tank mix is okay, we could
Yep.
potentially put that herbicide and insecticide in and kind of kill two birds with one stone there.
Yes. Yep. And while aphids I target fall, and it's before really this PowerPoint was made, I still think I've seen aphids in the spring. It's something to keep an eye on because once you have BYDV, it's too late.
Yep.
There's no cure for it. Fungicide, what's our timings there?
Yeah, I think the most important, as in the PFR data showed, the Feeks 10.5.1. That's going to be our main driver because it's going to protect for our head scab. Otherwise, if we're in a really high management situation or we see our heavy pressure of a foliar disease come on, we really want to protect that flag leaf. Feeks 8 or 9, probably a good growth stage to look at applying foliar there, fungicide there. And, maybe that's a situation where you look at a generic fungicide or something to really control those leaf lesions and things like that and then pour the dollars into to protect for that head scab.
Sure.
So just a couple different ideas there.
That's good. Guys, if you have any other further questions, let us know. is wanted to get this update out here on wheat. If you have wheat in your field and want to watch this just to keep everything in front. I know there's a lot going on as wheat starts to green up and take place. Sometimes it can get just a little bit uncertain exactly where we're at in the stages. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you, Celena.
Yep.
Everyone, thank you for joining us today on Agronomy Moment, a Top Ag Services production. If you want alerts on what we are finding in the field, go to topagservices.com/signups to receive alerts, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is our goal to bring you the most recent and advanced information possible. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We also ask you that you give us a like and follow our channel wherever you listen to your podcasts or watch these videos. This ultimately helps us reach more people like you.
Hello?
Hey, this has been Wendell Cohn, your show host. Thank you to all who made this show possible. This show is over. See ya.